Broadcast of our special half-hour report on this week's tornadoes this Sunday morning on 13 Weekly. Join us then. Good evening, I'm John Bachman. What a difference a week makes. 1 week ago tonight, a paralyzing ice storm gripped the NewsCenter 13 viewing area. 1 week later, another storm of March reached out and touched central Iowa. A powerful storm packing a very powerful punch. This storm system spawned tornadoes like this one in Kansas during the day, and at night, similar ones dropped from the Iowa skies. Now, this tornado struck fast and furious in eastern Iowa just before dusk. An amateur photographer captured this dramatic footage.
There it comes, there it comes. See it? There it goes.
And under the cover of darkness, a twister swooped down on an Ankeny neighborhood. By daylight, its destructive path was very evident. During the night, more than a dozen tornadoes ripped through several Iowa communities from Ankeny to Ogden to Elkhart, through eastern Iowa and Davenport. The storms of March indeed felt across Iowa. One of the comments we heard most frequently today was, it is too early for tornadoes. But actually, Kim Kerrigan, that's not exactly true.
It really isn't, John. Of course, this isn't the peak season for tornadoes, but the fact is, at one time or another, there's been a tornado in each month here in Iowa. Of course, not 12 months in a row, but in each month. Now, I don't know that there were as many so early in the season. There's no question about last night's devastation. It was unbelievable. Tornadoes spawned across this state. Right here in central Iowa, some of the worst damage could be found. Just north of Des Moines and Ankeny, several tornadoes spawned.
Pretty much we survived.
You must feel very lucky.
Yes, I am. Because these are all our friends, really good friends.
In Ogden, Iowa, workers were frantically trying to remove debris from a railroad track after a grain bin was flattened by a tornado. The spilled grain is now worthless, but officials there were working to save the grain in the bins that were still standing, but leaking.
We feel there's enough good grain in there so that we can take care of anything that might spoil on the top.
Much of eastern Iowa was hit. This is home footage shot by a man in LeClaire as a tornado formed right before his eyes.
If it is, it's down below the hill. I hope it don't turn and come back. There it comes, there it comes. See it?
Just over the river in Cordova, Illinois, homes were destroyed. Trees were ripped right out of the ground.
This was once beautiful blue spruce park, and all the blue spruces are gone.
This is just north of Cedar Rapids in the town of Hopkinton. Sharon Detbarn started to take pictures of the heavy rains. As she shot, golf ball-sized hail started to fall, and then this.
That's a tornado?
That's it. That's what you're looking for.
Oh, my God.
Now, John, there was more in northeastern Iowa. The town of Worthington reported extensive damage after a twister came through there. Monticello, Iowa was hit. In that town, they had to block off the road so that they could start to clean up. And the incredible part of all of this, as we've mentioned many times, is that there were no deaths after all of these tornadoes, and the injuries that were reported were not very serious.
Yeah, that really was a blessing. Thank you very much, Kim Kerrigan. In central Iowa, the worst of the damage, of course, in Ankeny. 20 homes on the southeast side destroyed, and close to 60 others sustaining at least partial damage. NewsCenter 13's Scott Pope joins us now with the live eye, where residents are trying to recover from last night's storm. Scott?
John, you mentioned earlier in the special here that the remark you've been hearing a lot today is it's too early for a tornado. The one remark I've been hearing over and over and over again today from Ankeny residents is it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as 74. 15 years ago, 2 tornadoes carved a path of death and destruction through this town. 2 people killed, dozens of homes completely demolished. So this storm may not have been as bad as the one in 74, but that is little consolation to the people here who lost everything. Like most tornadoes, this one hit with a random inconsistency. Homes ravaged by the twister, surrounded by those left virtually untouched. A block away, the same story. Those who lost everything tell frightening stories that send a chill down your spine.
Split seconds after we got downstairs and got underneath our pool table, the house exploded. It came apart at the seams and the roof blew off.
up and salvaging personal belongings has been a slow process, hampered by almost continuous rain. The focus now has shifted toward rebuilding and helping those who lost everything get back on their feet.
Are you the folks that live here?
Right here, down the chestnut.
Yeah.
I have it, of course.
Have you?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of a bad situation.
Thank you.
Governor Branstad, along with State Disaster Services Director Ellen Gordon and Ankeny Mayor Ollie Weigel, toured the devastated neighborhood.
Yeah, the roof's gone off that house. That one there has got, it looks like just plastered full of holes. Patching that one.
The governor also talked with individual homeowners and told them the services of the state are at their disposal.
Ellen Gordon, well, we want to do what we can to assist, and
but that doesn't necessarily mean state money, at least not right now.
well, it depends. There'll have to be a survey to determine the extent of the damage and how much is covered by insurance. Most of this is a relatively new area. We think the insurance coverage is probably going to be pretty adequate, but we'll be assessing that situation to determine.
John, one other thing, the governor said he'll be traveling to other parts of the state in the next couple of days to assess the tornado damage there. Once that's complete, then they'll make the decision on whether or not state aid will be forthcoming. One other thing I wanted to mention that the governor said today, he said he's very proud of the people of Iowa. He said disasters like this prove that we can really handle ourselves and come to the aid of our neighbors. He mentioned the 232 crash in Sioux City, the ice storm just last week. So he's really proud of the way that not only Ankeny residents, but Iowans all over the state have handled adversity that we've had in the past 6 months to a year.
Therese Thompson in her report mentioned on NewsCenter 13 at 6, the Red Cross out there, but really friends and neighbors volunteering as much, and the Red Cross not needed perhaps as much as in other areas of the country for sure.
You know, it happens like this. Every time there is a disaster, we cover a lot of these things over the course of the year, and it seems like every time somebody's in trouble, one of their friends or neighbors always come to their aid, and that has been the case around this neighborhood today as well.
Yeah, that is Iowa. Thank you. Scott Pope reporting for us. NewsCenter 13 also went up in the air to survey the damage from there, and as Lori Groves reports, the twister left a very clear path of destruction.
You can see the path the twister cut. Every place it touched down, roofs were torn, walls were collapsed, boards were scattered to the wind.
Southeast side. After the tornado got out of the country, though, it's left debris. Didn't really do much damage out there.
20 homes were practically wiped off the map in southeast Ankeny. 16 others were damaged, but not quite as bad. In this corner of Ankeny, it's easy to see from the air where the twister bounced like a yo-yo to the ground. From a half-mile up, tornado damage in Ogden wasn't quite as noticeable. Besides the destruction of 2 buildings near the town's grain elevator, there were just windows out and debris scattered throughout the town.
From the air, the debris was scattered like toothpicks. On the ground, it doesn't look much better.
In a few weeks, the boards will be picked up, the windows replaced, and the walls will be shored up. But even when the damage is cleared away, the people of Ankeny will have the twister of March 13th, 1990 to remember. With this special report from NewsCenter 13, I'm Lori Groves.
Next on our special The Storms of March, a live interview with Ankeny Mayor Ollie Weigel, and if you're a victim of the storm, we'll show you where you can go for help.
This special Celebrate 1990 issue of the Minnesota Explorer newspaper can help you plan a fabulous vacation. Just
Hopeful.
Public schools.
Storm victims tonight looking for help. Folks up in Ankeny are looking towards the city and state. Joining us now live is Ankeny Mayor Ollie Weigel. Mayor Weigel, we mentioned earlier, victims of this tragedy are getting a lot of help from their neighbors and friends. Any other help going to be available to them?
Well, I think the city, of course, is providing some help in the form of dumpsters, various police activities, keeping the place secure. Our people will be around with equipment to help pick up the debris and deposit it in some of the dumpsters and keep those replenished as they're needed, that sort of thing.
It's hoped that a lot of the financial coverage will come from insurance companies, though, right?
Yes, that's right. We think that most of these homes are fairly new and probably covered by good insurance. Mm-hmm.
You were around for the tornado of '74 right there in Ankeny. How does the
Yes.
response compare this time around?
Well, I think it's very much the same. It seems to be a tradition in Ankeny to turn out and help your neighbor, and people just seem to do that without being asked or anything. They're just ready to help wherever they can.
What about the element of surprise last night, Mayor? A tornado that comes at night, it's very difficult to warn people, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and we were watching the weather, of course, and knew that there were problems in the area, but we didn't realize they were quite as close to us as it turned out to be.
Well, good luck to your community now in recovering, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Weigel of Ankeny. The Red Cross also helping the victims, of course, of the Ankeny tornado. The Red Cross has set up a service center at the First Methodist Church at 206 Southwest Walnut in Ankeny. That service center will be open until 8 tonight. If you are a storm victim in another area, call your local Red Cross Center. Another big question tonight is, how did it all happen? Gary Amble says it was the forces of the atmosphere coming all together. Gary?
Well, John, yes, it was the forces of the atmosphere all coming together, but the whole situation looked like it would be more of a classic situation set up in May than in March. That was the big surprise story. Well, this is what happened as far as the model runs are concerned. As we take a look now at the graphic, we had a cold air mass located in the northwest colliding with a moist and warm air mass coming into the east. We were just on the moist side of that thermal boundary, you see. Now, when you throw in the upper level winds, the jet stream, if you will, and add in the upper level impulses or waves, sometimes we call these upper level disturbances. Now watch, as each one rides up the jet stream, and as each one passes Iowa, it refires the thunderstorms again. You probably noticed that the thunderstorms came in waves. Now the second wave caused the tornadoes in eastern Iowa, and the third wave caused the tornadoes here in central Iowa. Again, this looks more like a classic system we'd see sometime in May. The real surprise was that it came this early in the year.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary Amble for us. Tuesday night's tornadoes, just another element of a frightening day of severe weather for central Iowans. For our reporters, the day began early on rain-swollen creeks and ended with live reports from areas devastated by the tornadoes.
It's really a race against time out here in West Des Moines. Walnut Creek expected to go out of its bank sometime this afternoon. City crews from West Des Moines bagging up sand, giving them to any West Des Moines resident who needs them, who lives down along the creek or the river and is afraid the water may get into their house today. We're still all right as far as the flood conditions go right now, but the National Weather Service says around 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon we could have a real problem, not only at Walnut Creek, but also at 4 Mile Creek on the city's east side.
Yeah, tonight has been a violent evening as far as the weather is concerned. You can see what has happened as a tornado ripped across I-35, picking up cars and throwing debris through cars as it passed over a apartment building that is right here on the second exit of Ankeny as you're heading up north on I-35. A lot of damage, a lot of debris thrown around here on I-35. Portions of the interstate are shut down. You will have to take that into consideration as you're traveling back up to the north. Let's step back here and we'll look at the building as is what's left of the east end of this building when the tornado ripped through your community here. Tell me just exactly what this side of the building was.
Well, this is the old auditorium, the East End expansion, and we're actually, believe it or not, Ed, in the business of remodeling this end for a teen center. And just last night, we had 15 men in the building that were setting that beam in there. And we thank God that it was tonight and not last night.
A plywood board blew right through the garage door. There is just debris like this scattered all over. Even the car over here damaged heavily in the storm. This is Chris Gleason's house, and Chris Gleason was here last night with his 2 children when the storm hit. You're back this morning to assess the damage. Tell us.
We're here to get out what personal belongings we can, and we're just glad to be alive.
A frightening experience last night. You were actually inside when the tornado hit. Can you tell us what happened?
There was no pre-warning at all. My daughter and I, we were out in the garage. I was working on my old Buick, and my son was in the bedroom, and all of a sudden we heard this freight train coming, and I said, "Come on, let's get downstairs as fast as we can," and we hustled downstairs and got underneath the pool table, and just seconds after we got underneath the pool table, the whole house exploded.
A lot of glass on the floor. It's pretty dangerous here inside this house right now. We hope we don't have to stay in here too long. Walking down the hall, this is the most severely damaged room in the home. If you just want to take a look around, the furniture is completely damaged. The roof, a little while ago when we were in here, the roof started to cave in on us, so we don't want to spend too much time in this room. A lot of insulation on the floor. And the Hallbrooks say that they are still waiting for insurance adjusters to tell them a little bit more about what their damage is, and they're hoping to have a better estimate in a little while.
Some great team reporting from NewsCenter 13. Straight ahead, Ed Wilson's tornado myths and tips, and Gary Amble's history lesson on the deadliest and most destructive tornadoes in Iowa's history.
Unseasonable heavy weather rips through Iowa, causing floods and life-threatening tornadoes. Most stations brought you coverage at 6 and 10. NewsCenter 13 brought you the news first and brought it to you live on location.
It's really a race against time out here.
It looks like a river.
First, with a warning of tornado sightings in Boone and Polk counties.
And one tornado touchdown in Ankeny.
A lot of damage, a lot of debris.
When severe weather strikes, you shouldn't have to wait for news. That's the NewsCenter 13 difference.
Each year, nearly...
Unfortunately, it takes a storm of this magnitude to remind us of the dangers of these storms. Fortunately, this time no one was seriously injured. We've made time tonight to discuss severe weather safety tips. Our own Ed Wilson is in Ankeny tonight with the Live Eye, and he has this report on how to survive in the deadly storms. Ed?
John, living in Iowa, each of us has to ask ourselves, what would we do if a tornado was heading toward our home that could possibly give us this kind of damage? Well, there are a lot of questions to be answered and a lot of myths that go along with those questions and answers, some things that we may not know. And we asked a tornado safety specialist, Perry Baker from the National Weather Service this afternoon, what some of those tips are. When a tornado hits with force and fury, like last night in Ankeny, we think of the safety tips and even folklore about tornadoes and how to take precaution against injury in the deadly storms. Tonight, tornado expert Perry Baker of the National Weather Service helps to answer questions and myths commonly associated with tornadoes. Is it true that the southwest corner of the basement is the safest place to hide during a tornado?
That is not the case. The important place in your basement is to be under something sturdy to protect yourself from falling debris.
Should you close windows in your home when a tornado warning sounds?
We have found that it probably doesn't make a lot of difference to the damage of the house whether the windows are open or not.
Should you get out of your car while driving near a tornado?
The best thing to do is to park the car immediately and get out of the car and find a low spot or a ravine. Under a bridge offers good protection, and then cover your head from the flying debris.
And is it true that tornadoes always come out of the southwest?
About a third of our tornadoes will come out of the northwest and move southeast. So we have moved from all directions, depending on the upper airflow in Iowa.
And is it always quiet right before a tornado hits?
There's not always a calm before the storm. Sometimes you're still in the wind and rain and the tornado hits. Although there's been a lot of witnesses that have reported that they'd had that brief period of very quiet, eerie type weather just before the tornado hit.
I think maybe one of the best tips that Mr. Baker gave us this afternoon was that you just can't outguess Mother Nature, and taking every precaution is a good idea.
And yet, with all the changes of these myths and the practical information, it's good for all of us to review these again.
It really is, you know, and I think most of us have always heard the one about opening up the windows, and now it's a well-known fact that there's just not time to get those windows and doors opened at time. It's more important to get to safety.
Okay, thanks for the help. Ed Wilson reporting live. Increased awareness of tornadoes and severe weather has played a major role in keeping the number of fatalities and serious injuries to a minimum the past few years. But Gary Amble says that was not always the case, and he joins us now with a look at Iowa's past deadly tornadoes.
Well, thanks, John. Yes, indeed. It seems as though even though the tornadoes this go-around were more or less surprise tornadoes, the tornadoes of the past few years were even more so, and this is the damage that they caused. You're looking at the few remaining photographs of one of the worst tornadoes in Iowa history, the Grinnell tornado of 1882. 100 people were killed. The deadliest tornado ever was 22 years earlier in Comanche, 134 dead. Of the 5 worst tornadoes in state history, 4 were before the turn of the century, before sirens and warning systems. In 1893, a tornado in Pomeroy killed 89 people, and 1 year later, a tornado near Spencer took 53 lives. The worst tornado of this century in Iowa occurred in 1979. These rare photographs from our archives are the only reminders of the Algona and Manson tornado that took 5 lives and injured 60 people. The damage exceeded $40 million. According to experts from the Severe Storms Forecast Center in Kansas City, the tornadoes that come through Iowa are generally bigger and stronger than most other tornadoes, and as a result are potentially more deadly.
Many of the tornadoes that occur in Iowa are of the strong and violent type and very long track, and we've had a number of those in the 1980s, and not as many, again, on either side in Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska. So Iowa is, for some reason that we don't fully understand, has been getting more than its share of tornadoes, and also not only just getting general tornadoes, but getting some very violent tornadoes through Iowa.
Now, believe it or not, John, Iowa ranks 4th in the 1980s as far as picking up the numbers of tornadoes in the country. That's a lot of tornadoes, but we've gone more than 4 years now without a tornado fatality, so that says something about our preparedness program here in Iowa.
Gary, is there any one factor explaining why the destruction back in the 1800s was so much more severe than recently?
Well, John, there's a big factor, and basically it boils down to the media and how we're able to get that information out to the people in a quick manner. In the 1800s, they didn't have anything like that. Now people know that at least they're under a watch or the conditions are favorable, so they're more on the lookout for tornadoes than they were in the 1800s.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. We'll have more on the storm of March in just a moment. Yes, indeed, what a difference a week makes. For now, the storms of March are behind us. Ahead of us, another week of neighbors helping neighbors. We should remember, through this night of destruction and terror, we are fortunate. Although many lost items of monetary value, no one lost a loved one or a family member. And for that, we are very, very thankful. I'm John Bachman. We'll see you at 10.
Volunteers are the